whispers in the mist. Can you hear them? Welcome, dear listeners, to Whispering Pines Campground, a picturesque retreat nestled on the shores of Lake Serenity, where families come to escape the chaos of modern life. But tonight, we peel back nature's veil to reveal the horrors that lurk in the depths. I am the Nightmare Maestro, and I promise you this: by the time our tale concludes, you'll never look at a placid lake the same way again. The Henderson family pulled into Whispering Pines Campground, their minivan loaded with tents and coolers. Sarah pressed her face against the window, eyes wide at the shimmering expanse of Lake Serenity. Her parents, Mark and Lisa, exchanged weary smiles. This weekend getaway was long overdue. As they checked in, the campground host's friendly demeanor seemed forced. "Enjoy your stay," he said, his gaze drifting nervously to the water. "And remember, no swimming after dark. For your safety." Mark chuckled, chalking it up to liability concerns. If only he knew the truth that lurked beneath the lake's placid surface. Darkness fell swiftly. The Hendersons sat around their campfire, roasting marshmallows. Sarah shivered, pulling her jacket tighter. "Do you hear that?" she whispered. Lisa cocked her head. "Just the wind, sweetie." But it wasn't the wind. A faint melody drifted across the water, barely perceptible. Mark's brow furrowed. Probably some kids with a radio, he reasoned, but doubt crept into his voice. In their tent that night, Sarah tossed and turned. The song grew stronger, hauntingly beautiful. She longed to seek its source, her dreams filled with shimmering scales and beckoning hands. Morning brought commotion. Park rangers swarmed a nearby campsite. The Hendersons watched as a frantic woman gesticulated wildly. "He wouldn't just leave," she cried. "Tom always tells me where he's going." Sarah caught snippets of conversation. A man had vanished in the night, leaving behind a half-empty beer and still-warm sleeping bag. Search parties formed, combing the woods. But Sarah's gaze was drawn to the lake, its surface deceptively calm. Lisa clutched her daughter's shoulder. "Stay close to camp today, okay?" Sarah nodded, a chill running down her spine. At the camp store, Sarah overheard hushed conversations. "Third one this season," an old-timer muttered. "Lake's hungry this year." The clerk shushed him, eyeing Sarah. "Don't listen to campfire stories, sweetheart. Your parents want Esmore's fixings?" But Sarah's curiosity was piqued. As she left, a weathered woman grabbed her arm. "Don't go near the water at night," she hissed. "No matter how sweet the song. It ain't natural, what's in there." Sarah pulled away, heart racing. The lake's surface sparkled innocently in the sunlight, betraying nothing of its secrets. That evening, the melody returned, stronger than before. Sarah watched her parents grow restless, exchanging worried glances. Even they could hear it now. "Maybe we should pack up," Lisa suggested. "Find a different campground." Mark shook his head. "It's nothing. Probably some prank." But as night deepened, Sarah saw her father pacing, staring at the lake with a mix of fear and longing. The song wove through the air, promising comfort, adventure, answers to life's deepest mysteries. Sarah clutched her pillow, fighting the urge to run to the water's edge. Sarah awoke with a start. The tent was empty. Panic rising, she unzipped the flap and peered out. Two figures stood at the shoreline, her parents, hand in hand, swaying slightly. "Mom? Dad?" she called. They didn't respond. As Sarah approached, she saw their glazed expressions, enraptured by something in the water. A pale, feminine face breached the surface, impossibly beautiful. It opened its mouth, and the song poured forth, more intoxicating than ever. Sarah screamed, shattering the spell. Her parents snapped back to reality, stumbling away from the water. The face vanished with a splash and an inhuman shriek. Dawn broke, and with it came revelations. Park rangers, grim-faced, gathered the campers. "For your safety, we're evacuating the campground," they announced. An elderly local stood up, defiant. "Tell them the truth. They deserve to know what they're up against." The ranger sighed, relenting. Lake Serenity has a history. Native legends speak of a water spirit, neither good nor evil, but hungry. Every few decades, it awakens, luring victims to the depths. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Sarah's parents held her close, remembering their narrow escape. But Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that this was far from over. Panic erupted as families rushed to pack up and flee. The Hendersons threw their belongings haphazardly into the minivan. But as Mark turned the key, the engine sputtered and died. "No, no, no," he muttered, trying again. Nothing. Other campers faced similar issues: flat tires, dead batteries, engines refusing to start. It was as if the lake itself was conspiring to keep them there. Sarah watched the water, its surface now choppy and dark. She could have sworn she saw faces beneath the waves, watching, waiting. The song began again, a siren call of desperation. As night fell, a dozen campers remained, stranded by mechanical failures. The rangers established a safe zone away from the shore, but the song's pull was stronger than ever. Sarah watched adults she thought of as brave, rational people struggle against the lure. Some wept, others argued furiously for just a closer look. Her own parents were ashen-faced, fighting an internal battle. "We can't last another night," Lisa whispered. "It's too strong." That's when Sarah realized it would be up to her to save them all. But how could a girl stop an ancient, hungry spirit? The adults argued. Sarah slipped away to the camp store. She rummaged through shelves, grabbing anything that might help: rope, flashlights, an old radio. Her mind raced, piecing together a desperate plan. As she worked, she overheard snatches of local lore. The spirit couldn't leave the water. It needed a physical anchor, something beneath the waves. If she could find it, destroy it. Sarah's hands trembled as she stuffed supplies into her backpack. She was terrified, but the alternative, watching her parents and others succumb to the lake, was unthinkable. With a deep breath, she steeled herself for what came next. Under cover of darkness, Sarah crept to the lake's edge. The song swelled, almost overwhelming, but she forced herself to focus on her parents' faces, on the lives at stake. She inflated a small raft, stolen from another campsite. With shaking hands, she pushed off from shore. The black water lapped at the sides, threatening to pull her under. Sarah clicked on her flashlight, scanning the depths. Shadows moved beneath her, circling like sharks. Ghostly faces pressed against the surface, mouths open in silent screams. She bit back a sob, paddling deeper into the heart of the lake. As Sarah drifted further from shore, the song changed. It fragmented into a cacophony of voices: men, women, children. Victims from across the decades, their final moments replaying in haunting whispers. "Please, I want to go home," a child's voice sobbed. "I didn't mean to come this far," an old man wheezed. Sarah's tears mingled with lake water. The voices were so sad, so lost. For a moment, she felt the overwhelming urge to join them, to end their loneliness. She shook her head violently. "No," she shouted. "I won't let you take anyone else." Her defiance seemed to ripple through the water. Sarah's flashlight beam caught something solid. As she leaned closer, her breath caught. Beneath the water lay the ruins of a village, houses, a church steeple, even an old general store. Realization dawned. The lake was man-made, created by damming a river valley. This village had been sacrificed, its residents forced to relocate. But clearly, not everyone had left. A flash of movement caught her eye. A figure, more corpse than human, shambled through the submerged streets. It turned, fixing Sarah with milky eyes. Its mouth opened in a silent scream, and suddenly, Sarah understood the source of the song. Sarah's raft drifted towards the center of the sunken village. There, rising from the murky depths, stood a tree. Ancient and gnarled, its branches reached towards the surface like grasping fingers. Tied to the trunk was a woman. No, not quite a woman, something that had once been human, twisted by decades beneath the waves. Her hair flowed around her like seaweed, her skin pale and translucent. As Sarah watched in horror, the creature's mouth opened. The song poured forth, filled with longing, rage, and hunger. This was the source, the spirit of the lake given physical form. Sarah knew what she had to do. With trembling hands, Sarah uncoiled the rope she brought. She fashioned a crude lasso, praying her summers at horse camp would pay off. The spirit thrashed as Sarah's first throw missed. The water churned, and ghostly hands clutched at the raft. Sarah screamed but tried again. This time, the rope found its mark, looping around a branch. Sarah pulled with all her might. The tree creaked, decades of rot weakening its hold. The spirit's song turned to a shriek of fury and fear. With a final heave, there was a great crack. The tree lurched, tipping slowly into the depths. The spirit, still bound, was dragged down with it. The lake erupted. A geyser of water shot skyward as an unearthly wail echoed across the night. Sarah clung to her raft, battered by waves. When the chaos subsided, an eerie silence fell. The song was gone. The oppressive presence that had hung over the lake lifted like a fog. Sarah sobbed with relief, exhaustion overtaking her. As consciousness faded, she heard distant shouts. Flashlight beams cut through the darkness. Her parents, the rangers, they were coming for her. She managed a weak smile before slipping into unconsciousness. It was over. She had won. Sarah awoke in a hospital bed, her parents by her side. Tears, hugs, and frantic questions followed. How had she known what to do? Why had she risked her life? Sarah tried to explain, but the words felt hollow. How could she describe the haunting beauty of the song, the desperation of the trapped souls? As days passed, investigators combed the lake. They found the remnants of the sunken village, along with dozens of bodies, missing persons spanning decades. The story hit national news, turning Whispering Pines into a macabre tourist attraction. But something nagged at Sarah. Had she truly solved the mystery, or merely delayed the inevitable? Weeks later, the Hendersons returned home. Life slowly returned to normal, but Sarah found herself unable to shake the memories of that night. She researched obsessively, diving into the history of the lake and similar legends around the world. One night, unable to sleep, she slipped out of bed and filled the bathtub. As she stared at her reflection in the still water, a chill ran down her spine. For just a moment, she thought she heard a faint melody. Sarah backed away, heart pounding. Had she brought something back with her? Or was her mind playing tricks, unable to let go of the trauma? Months passed. Sarah had almost convinced herself it was all a bad dream when a letter arrived. The envelope bore no return address, only a postmark from a small town near Lake Serenity. With trembling hands, she opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper, water-stained and smelling faintly of algae. In shaky handwriting, it read, "You freed us, child. But some chains can never be broken. The hunger remains. It will call again. And next time, you may not be strong enough to resist. The lake remembers. And it is patient." Sarah's blood ran cold. It wasn't over. Sarah stood at a crossroads. She could try to forget, to bury the trauma and move on with her life. But the letter weighed heavily in her pocket, a reminder that the threat wasn't truly gone. With a deep breath, she made her choice. She would return to Lake Serenity. Not as a victim or a savior, but as someone seeking understanding. If the spirit could be reasoned with, appeased, or truly defeated, she had to try. As she packed her bag, Sarah caught her reflection in the mirror. The girl who stared back was changed, hardened by her ordeal. She was ready to face whatever came next. The bus wheezed to a stop at the entrance to Whispering Pines campground. Sarah stepped off, her backpack heavy with supplies and research materials. The lake shimmered in the distance, deceptively peaceful. She checked into a small cabin, ignoring the curious stares of the staff. To them, she was a morbid tourist, drawn by the lake's dark history. If only they knew the truth. As night fell, Sarah sat on the cabin's porch, watching the water. The silence was oppressive. She found herself straining to hear the faintest whisper of song, unsure whether to feel relief or disappointment at its absence. Under the light of a full moon, Sarah waded into the shallows. Her heart pounded, every instinct screaming at her to run. But she stood her ground. "I know you're there," she called out. "I know you're hungry. But there has to be another way." The water remained still. Then, slowly, a ripple formed. A face emerged, the spirit, but changed. No longer beautiful, it was a reflection of Sarah herself, twisted by pain and loneliness. "You don't understand," it said, its voice a chorus of lost souls. "The hunger is all we have left." Sarah steeled herself. "Then let me understand. Show me." She reached out her hand, touching the spirit's cold, wet cheek. In that moment, worlds collided. And so, dear listeners, our tale draws to a close, or does it? For in that touch between the living and the dead, a bargain was struck. Sarah's compassion opened a door long thought sealed. The spirit of Lake Serenity found not an end, but a new beginning. The hunger remains, yes, but now it has a champion, a bridge between two worlds. And as for Sarah? Well, some say on still nights, you can hear a young woman's voice joining the haunting melody that drifts across the water. What price did she pay for understanding? What secrets did she learn? Those answers, I'm afraid, must wait for another dark night. For now, I bid you sweet dreams, and a warning. The next time you stand at the shore of a placid lake, listen carefully. You never know what might be calling your name. Subscribe for more chilling tales from the Nightmare Maestro. Until next time, pleasant nightmares.